Ramadan is a month of faith, reflection, and community, but in Gaza it has been largely characterized this is the second time in a row, for the second year, being largely characterized by devastation, destruction, and ongoing displacement, even with people returning to their homes in Gaza and the northern part of the Strip. They're coming back to pretty much nothing. They end up in other evacuation zones or in tent sites that are not at the site of their home. So this is something that has been feeding into their permanent sense of permanent displacement. And with the shortage of food and blockade on aid, a lot of Palestinians, first day of Ramadan, they were forced to break their fast on whatever they are able to have across the Gaza Strip. There is definitely shortage on many of the essential food supplies. That is something that has been going on for the past month due to the obstruction on the entry of aid from Karm Abu Salim crossings, as well as the kind of supplies that are being allowed into the Gaza Strip. So far, what we're noticing is more of the complementary stuff over what's really essential and needed for people to sustain their life, let alone now in month of fasting and Ramadan. But what people are doing right now, they were hoping that the first day of Ramadan was going to start on a positive note, a beginning of phase 2 of the ceasefire, but that did not happen due to the ongoing delay by the Israeli Prime Minister, who'd rather to stall and push for phase 1 to continue over the start and moving into phase 2 as agreed upon in the ceasefire agreement. That has left people in so much uncertainty and feeling worried and concerned over the ability of the agreement to sustain.
Hamdah Salhut is live for us in Jordan's capital, Amman. She's there because the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority have banned Al Jazeera from reporting from inside Israel, as well as the occupied West Bank. Hamdah, can you just talk us through Israel's reluctance to move on from phase 1 and what's happening there, what response we've heard from Israel recently?
Well, at this hour, the Prime Minister is actually holding a security consultation with many members of his security cabinet to try and see exactly how Israel is going to move forward here. Israel was pushing to extend phase 1 of the deal in order to secure the release of more hostages, but without committing to an end of the war. Now, Hamas has been privately, publicly, and relaying this message through mediators, saying that they're not going to accept this. It's a red line for them, that they want to move forward to phase 2. They want to move forward with the agreement that was signed by both parties back in January, but Israel is hoping for a different outcome. So it's actually still unclear at this point exactly where we're headed in terms of the ceasefire deal, which we are in the last day of. But nonetheless, the family members of Israeli captives are still taking to the streets tonight, calling on the Israeli government to do things differently, to accept phase 2 of the deal, to release all of the remaining captives, because that's the only way it can be done. Netanyahu long maintained that it could be done through military pressure and means, but that wasn't the case, as the family members of the captives say. Take a listen.
We can bring back every single hostage. There is a proposal that can be implemented tomorrow morning, to put an end to the war and get everyone out in one step. But Netanyahu is dragging us back into pointless war, bringing more deaths and causing more hostages to be murdered in captivity. Netanyahu, there is no need to extend phase 1. There is an immediate need to initiate phase 2.
Well, as a lot of the focus has been on Gaza and moving on to phase 2 of the ceasefire deal, raids continue in the occupied West Bank as well. Can you explain what's happening there at the moment?
Well, it's been almost 40 days since the siege on the occupied West Bank by Israeli forces had commenced, and the military even bringing in tanks for the first time in more than 2 decades to the occupied Palestinian territory. The army says they want to crack down on armed Palestinian fighters, but civilians are really the ones feeling the consequences of the Israeli army actions. They're tearing up roads, they're destroying critical civilian infrastructure, and they're also destroying entire apartment and residential blocks, mirroring mirroring these policies that they were carrying out in Gaza. More than 40,000 Palestinians have been forcibly displaced by these raids that are only expanding in size, I'll add. And experts and analysts say this is the highest number of displaced Palestinians in the West Bank since 1967, when the military occupation essentially began. So it's also worth mentioning that Israel doesn't really care about where these Palestinians are going, many of them going to stay with family or friends or schools, other sort of community centers, but that's not going to last very long because the Israeli government has also cut off the main lifeline for Palestinians, UNRWA, the UN relief agency for Palestinian refugees, that has now been banned by the Israeli government, cannot work to distribute aid and other sort of critical things for Palestinians in this desperate time of need as they're forced out of their homes continuously by Israeli forces.
Okay, thank you so much, Hamdah. Hamdah Salhut for us there in Amman.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.